Paltrocast.
Well, I'm going to say good evening. For me, it's good afternoon, but good evening. How's your day going out there?
Pretty well, thanks. How are you?
I'm fine. Now, I asked that because you have to answer the same questions over and over and over again from writers. I don't know if that makes you tired.
No, all good with me. I mean, all attention is, at least for a band, is good attention, and I mean, it's no worse than playing the same song over and over for different people, answering the same questions to different people. It's all good, man. That's what we're here for.
Well, speaking of new music, Ballads, new record. When did you actually finish it?
We finished it in September last year. Started it already before we released the last album, Hill. Some of the songs were written by that time. They just weren't. Well, the album was already full. There wasn't room for more music. So in the last 5 or 6 years, we've been writing these songs.
Wow. So sometimes you find out when a band is making an album that they pare it down from 30 or 40 songs. And other times you find out if there's 12 songs in the album, they wrote 12 songs. Is your band not a prolific band?
I can think of one song we've written and not released. Apart from that, it wasn't even a properly finished song. Apart from that, everything we've written as a band, we've released. We don't make half-assed songs that aren't ready for release.
When you go into the studio, are all the songs already written, or do you sometimes finish things in the studio?
Well, we don't go into studio as such. Since 2013, when we made the Valkyria, we have focused on building our own private little studios and obtaining the expertise of recording properly. All I know, at least I've learned from Jacob Hansen, who has recorded and mixed our albums since 2003. And I record my own vocals in my own studio. I record the guitars and bass and solos, choirs, everything. So it's a much less hectic process, much less pressure. We go into studio to make the drums, but the drums are mainly finished even before that. Not always in detail, but mainly. So there's very little songwriting that happens in studio, if any. We do it in our own studio on our own time, which is a extremely liberating way of making music compared to the hectic environment of studio.
Is Metal Blade the worldwide record label for this, or is it just North America and Europe?
Metal Blade, according to contract, has the world and universe for us.
And the universe. I ask that because sometimes you see bands go, well, this is our North American label, this is our European label minus Norway, this is our Japanese label, etc. So it's Metal Blade around the world.
It is.
Wow. So what led to that decision to go, nah, we don't want to deal with this Scandinavian label, we trust you? Is it because Metal Blade has decades of success within the metal and hard rock worlds?
They have a lot of good names to their label. They have a lot of good history. Brian Slagle was there at the beginning of the Bay Area metal, and he was involved. To be frank, at the time we made the contract with Metal Blade, we had a different manager. I wasn't managing the band myself. I wasn't very much involved with the business decisions, and it was his decision to go with Metal Blade. And he was the business guy. We kind of went with his preferences and decisions. Although, of course, we were asked, and it was our signature. So he thought it was a good idea at the time to make a worldwide deal, which we did. It's very normal for bands our size and our kind to make worldwide deals, and we've been very pleased with our cooperation with Metal Blade. They've treated us extremely well. They had no comments as to our artistic output. They put no pressure on us of any kind. It's been extraordinary positive cooperation.
I'm glad to hear that. when a band releases an album with the same label 3 times, they're either stuck under contract or they're very happy with where they are. So I'm glad to see that you're happy with where you are. And another
Absolutely.
question that I really don't know the answer to is, are the successes of your band the same in every territory? I ask that because sometimes you find out this was only a hit in England, or you find out that a band is famous everywhere except their home country. You never know that kind of stuff. So, for example, the band Bush, that first record probably sold 10 million albums in the US and then didn't really do much in the native UK where they're from. So you never know, hey, this Norwegian band, no one knows who they are in their home turf.
I have an idea that we are about the same level successful everywhere. As you know, it depends on how successful metal in general is in an area. But where people like metal, we are about the same level, I think. Individual songs might get more popular here and there because of the cultural connection. For example, we made a version of the Wild Rover, Scottish-Irish folk ballad, and that gets more attention in Britain than say Denmark. So tiny differences like that, but overall, it seems like pretty much the same everywhere, even
Got
here
it.
in the Faroes.
Got it. So the Faroe Islands, how does that work in terms of storing gear? Because when it's a US band, it's impossible to get things from New York to California. You have to freight it and it's very expensive. But to go from mainland Denmark to the Faroe Islands, how does that work? Do you have separate equipment for this part of the country versus that part of the country?
No, we have of course we fly with all the equipment we have. We have a couple of cases of equipment with us. We have taken our equipment down to the absolute minimum, and it's been the challenge of our entire career to find equipment that can stand the grueling circumstances of constant travel, and that is reliable and works live and is of a size that you can travel with it. So we fly with all our gear from the Faroes to Denmark, then to wherever we go, Atlanta or Toronto, and go on tour from there.
In terms of Danish music, I'm a big fan of a lot of native Danish artists, but I'm curious, what was your evolution from listening to Danish music to listening to international music, or was it all at the same time for you?
I didn't listen that much to Danish music. Uh, we have the growing up in the Faroes. You're exposed to some Danish pop music, of course, but not really the Danish metal. That's something I found later. Um, the bands I grew up with are Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Metallica, maybe some Black Sabbath, and other Scandinavian bands from Sweden and Norway, particularly TNT in Europe and
Mhm.
bands like that. Danish big metal bands, maybe the only one that I knew when I was really young and getting into metal was Pretty Maids. Um, Apart from that, I looked up to a few local bands here in the Faroes, but of course they're not around anymore. They couldn't make ends meet financially, which is no surprise now that I see it from the other side myself. Um, so yeah, I kind of never really got into the Danish part of metal, except from like I said, Pretty Mates, and maybe the occasional rock band like DAD or Dismas Lizzy.
Oh, Dismas Lizzy, my friend Tim. I'm glad you're a friend or fan of Tim and Dismas Lizzy.
Yeah, that I listened to them so much when I was younger. So we got the really big metal, Danish metal this way, but it was mostly British and American.
Got it. It wasn't White Lion. It wasn't Mike Tramp's pop group before White Lion.
I, I've heard of them, of course, but it was not something I listened to very much. No, no.
So you have a big US tour coming up soon. Is it challenging for you to tour the States? I'd imagine that the first US tour, you kind of don't know what to expect, but the second one is a lot easier.
Absolutely. I I I got really terrible jet lag on the first time I went to the US, and I was properly ill for a week or 10 days. The second time it's easier, then you kind of get used to it, you know what to expect, and I don't know, we've probably done 10 or 15 tours there by now, and it gets easier and easier. You recognize the same venues, same places, and you get to know some people, you know their faces and their names and all the beautiful big cities, completely different than what we have in Europe or even in the Faroes, uh, especially. So we got used to it over the years, how touring works in the US, and it's just a great pleasure every time. Amazing country, very varied, very big. So it's not like you can describe it in even one sentence or on one page. It's huge, wonderful continent with wonderful people.
That's nice of you to say, whether or not it's true. But Battle Ballads, are you going to be playing a lot of Battle Ballads on this upcoming tour?
Yeah, a few. The singles that will be out before the tour starts will be on our set list, definitely.
Got it. Okay, I'm looking forward to that. Gramercy Theater, I think, is the New York show. But two,
Yeah.
two questions, and then I let you go. The first one is, all I know about you is the great music. What's the number two hobby or passion away from the band?
My hobby is what I do most, except music, is fitness, run, lift weights, and then I'm very interested in the contemporary politics. I'm addicted to the world news politically and linguistics. I'm I'm um, I'm an amateur linguist. Before I became a musician, I wanted to be a linguist. So I love reading about etymology, Indo-European etymology especially, but any interesting fact that I come around, I find it fascinating. So I have a hobby or two besides music.
You're on Duolingo, that app studying languages.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which are this is not the last question, but which languages are you currently going between on Duolingo?
Russian and Finnish.
Wow. Okay, those are different sides of your brain, so I'm impressed. And
They are. They are. Yeah, I have some other languages on there. I got quite high in Czech, and I did some Latin and German, brushing up on my German. I do speak a few languages before that. I speak about 7 languages, so I'm a serious linguist, amateur linguist.
you are there to shatter the stereotype that metal fans are not smart. Anyway, last question I've got for you is, I always, anytime I speak to a high level musician from Scandinavia, I like to confirm whether or not this is true. That Van Halen was not a big popular band in your country aside from Jump. Am I wrong about that?
You're right. Um, we know their biggest hits, like 3 or 4 songs. Jump, the one with Steve Vai, with the talking guitar.
Oh yeah, Yankee Road.
Yankee Rose, yeah. That's probably because of Steve Vai more than Van Halen. No, that's not Van
That's
Halen. That's David
Dave.
Roth solo.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. No, no. And I know Jump in Panama, and that's it. I couldn't tell you one other Van Halen song.
So instead, my theory is that Deep Purple is the influential band for Scandinavia rather than Van Halen.
Oh yeah, I know Deep Purple inside out.
Well, thank you for reinforcing my stereotypes. I look forward to your New York gig, and congratulations on your new record. Great to see that you're still doing excellent art this far into your career.
Thanks, man. Great interview, and see you in New York.
Paltrocast.